Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Welcome to Satsang. So we are here today, as you know. Some of you don't know, maybe. In the fullness of life. Today, someone has been absorbed into Arunachala. This is true every day, isn't it? But you know, in the West, where most of us are from, we often don't know death unless it is the death of someone close to us. But often, if it's the neighbor or someone down the street or someone that we've done business with, we don't know about that for many weeks or many months when we suddenly realize that we haven't seen that person for a long time. But in India, we live in the fullness of life, which includes when the body begins dissolution. And so we know when our neighbors have died. We know it immediately. We know it as a celebration of their life. And so we hear this drumming. We hear the firecrackers. If you live in the vicinity of the Yamalingam, you smell the burning of the body. And all of this serves to remind us of the teaching of Sri Ramana Maharshi. If you remember, and I know that you do, Ramana said, I realized one day this body will die. It will be carried off and burned. And so he resolved to lay down, to stop his breathing, and ask this question, what is death? What happens? If this body dissolves, do I dissolve? And he realized in that moment that the full strength of I was still present in him. And this recollection, this recognition, propelled him deeply into the heart of being and into the recognition and realization of the self. So in this tradition of Sri Ramana, the recollection for all of us that we will also face this moment when the body dissolves is not a moment for fear, but a moment for realization. And we are encouraged throughout our sadhana to remember and recollect, this body will dissolve. There is nothing I can do to prevent that. And then to ask the question, what will remain? What was here before this body? What will be here after? This recognition of the self that Sri Ramana experienced was the answer to this question. So when we hear, as we have this opportunity in India, to be reminded day by day of the presence of the death and the dissolution of the body, are you using it? Are you asking yourself, who am I? What is this I? This I, as consciousness, as being, is ever here and will remain after the dissolution of this body. It will take another form, perhaps, but it will remain. Who is this I? So when we hear the sound of the drum, we hear it in the fullness of life, don't we? For a moment, it blocks out everything else. But at the moment of silence that comes after, we once again hear the birds, the cows, the rickshaws. Life is going on, the chickens. Life is going on. And in the midst of this, one body has dissolved and one being has returned to Arunachala. Hari Om. Listening to the sound of these drums, to the voices of the people, the crowing of the rooster, the sound of the birds, the sound of my voice. All of this is consciousness itself, manifesting, present as all of this, eternally, beyond the dissolution of any particular body. Who am I? When you hear the drum, ask yourself, am I prepared? The dissolution of this body will come. That can't be avoided. So who am I? Use this time wisely. Know yourself to be that which is aware as being consciousness. Use the presence of life and the presence of death to remind yourself your time is short in this body. Slip into the eternal before this body dissolves. Know who you are. This is the great blessing of having taken this body, this time for you, and having come to the teachings of this great master. Stay awake. So someone passed this note up today, so I will read it to you. How do I deal with all of the deadlines that I have back home if I have a business? So apparently they have a business. Of course I can stop it, but I love to do what I do. How to deal with all the deadlines. there's no doubt that each of us has a life which goes on. Even if we take time out to come somewhere like this, there is a life somewhere for most of us that goes on, and we have to deal with the details. This is also true even if we live here, right? I mean, we still have to have the bills paid, we have to pay the rent, we have to go to the doctor, we have to go do the shopping, we have to cook the food, we have to go eat, whatever, we have to do it. Something has to be done. The question remains the same. Who? You see, it's identification with the body as the doer that causes us to struggle and suffer. When we have a story like this, how to deal with all the deadlines you have back home, and if you have a business, how to deal with that. Ask yourself, who is this you? Who are you referring to? You see, the activity of life, which is moving through you, as you, is not you. It is the activity of life. You struggle and suffer because you identify what's the natural activity of life. You take responsibility for things which really are the responsibility of the Supreme, of that which has brought you here. So that doesn't mean don't do the things that you're required to do. If you don't pay your rent, you'll be on the Girivalam before long. That's okay with you, then don't pay the rent. If you'd rather not, pay the rent. You see, whatever is here for you at this moment, whether it's to pay the rent or to run a business that's back in your home country, do that without identification, without this belief that there is a me or a doer. This liberates you from that sense of responsibility. Whatever you are destined to do, you will do. You can't avoid it. Whatever you're not destined to do won't come to you. So no matter how much you think you would like to pursue that goal or that person or that business, you won't be able to manifest it. It will keep disappearing. It will keep moving off into the distance as you pursue it, because it's not for you, not in this lifetime. Can you live in this surrendered state? This is really about surrender, isn't it? Allowing what comes to come and what goes to go. Living in the fullness of the moment, even when you haven't decided what's important. Simply living as being and presence in the midst of whatever is coming and going. In this way, you come to understand that the happiness that you are lives within you. If you have been called here, you have within you the capacity to surrender everything at the feet of the Lord. So whether it's your business, a relationship, something wants to dissolve in your life, you have the capacity, the ability. Do you have the willingness to surrender everything at the feet of the Lord? Of course you do. That's why you're here. You have been called here for this. So do what you need to do what comes for you to do naturally. But don't cling to it. This is the path of suffering. The path of liberation is to know you are not it, whatever it is. But the last part of this says, I can stop it, but I love to do what I do. So follow the love. Don't identify with the lover. Just follow the love. Continue. All is well. So, I also, I don't know, is there a follow-up question? You don't have to raise your hand or anything, but if you want to.
Just about that question that was asked, about I love what I do. And what happens when I'm here and in Arunachala is I stay at peace most of the time. And then sometimes the mind, which is like, who likes to learn new things and discover new ideas and learn and teach, it will run wild, you know. At the point that at the last satsang, I was sitting in the back, and in the piece, so many ideas started flowing.
Yes, and this is a common experience, yes.
And the thing is, I didn't have anything to note them. And the part of me was like saying, wow, but these insights, they are so amazing. I don't want to lose them.
So insight becomes panic.
I had to go away from the satsang to come back home and note these ideas.
And write these things down.
Yeah, yes. And this part of me who likes to learn was really happy with that, you know. Saying, actually, you were right to do that. And so, I don't know if you have anything to say, because
this is the classic momentum of the mind, which takes us away from the recognition or realization of being. We are here in this peaceful presence of all is well, and suddenly we have to run home and sit and make and write. We have to go home and write the great novel. We have to go home and write a beautiful poem. We have to go home and build a business. It's important to see that characteristic of the mind, and then I would ask you, do you know what the teaching is from that point? What you could have done at the moment that all of this commotion started, all these brilliant ideas and this wonderful insight was rising in the silence of your being? What could you have done instead of running home to write it all down?
The thing is, what it looks like is that from the awareness point of view, everything is perfect. And so I'm just wondering, if this is not kind of the prarabdha karma of that aspect of me to do what it has to do until it's ready to let go, you know.
Yes, that's true. The prarabdha karma of the body is going to push you in the direction where you have to do what needs to be fulfilled in this life. The question I asked you, though, what could you have done, really points you toward the question, what is my goal in spiritual life? We say there is no goal. Even Sri Ramana said that. There is no goal in inquiry. But nonetheless, why are you here?
Yeah, and about that,
Yeah.
this morning when I entered the kind of spiritual energy in me,
Yeah.
it said, in some way, it said, I am home already. So, I don't know. It's like it said, like, if something in you needs to go run, I will always be here, home, in some way.
Yes. You are always here. You are always home in some way. There's not a problem with what you did. There's not a problem with following this, going home, writing down the insights, writing down. There's not a problem. There's no problem.
Yes.
Everything is fine in every circumstance. Do you know yourself?
I lose sight of it.
Ah,
Like the awareness, it's like horses
yes,
that run, you know.
yes.
And when they run, it's
yes, yes. And this is why the teaching calls for, in this circumstance where you were sitting here and you had to leave and you had to run home and write all of that down, the teaching calls for, the pointer is, do nothing. Keep quiet. It's not because because that movement or motion to go home and write everything down is wrong. It's because there is something that can be seen about that tendency to run into the pleasures of the mind. There is something that can be seen about that. And what is usually seen is the ways in which that running veils the recognition of being, consciousness, and bliss as the natural state. The natural state meaning nothing is needed. Nothing is needed to be known, to be remembered, to be written down, to be published. Nothing is needed. This moment is the fullness of being. And the only way we can come to that as a direct perception, as a lived experience, is at some moment when this mind starts running, we say, keep quiet. So this will happen naturally when you are ready for it. But I am going to tell you that because you are hearing this, you are ready for it. So now you can notice this tendency in the mind whenever it comes up. And from time to time, you can remain silent. You can do nothing. You can let these thoughts, even though they are very interesting, very beautiful, very intriguing, you can let them just dissolve and see what happens after that dissolution happens and the gap is realized. There is a knowledge there available to you. There is a knowing there available to you that you've yet to touch, but it's there for you. But you won't find it by running out, only by running in. It's just like this sound this morning. This sound, you see that? Are you aware now? We've sat through quite a lot of it. Are you aware of the wave-like quality of it? Huh? There's a little bit of drumming. You can hear it. It's in the background. It's all very pleasant. It's very nice. Body starts to vibrate with that, and then it gets louder, and then it gets more intense, and then more drums come in, and then more drums come in, and it gets louder, and it gets more intense, and now everybody's like buzzing and humming from the energy of it, and then it goes completely silent. And then it stops. Notice the gap. Did you see the way your mind, you were not thinking probably, somehow it's just following because the sound is overwhelming, so the mind just sort of goes, okay, let me get out of the way for a minute. And then it stops. And there is this moment, maybe just this long, but maybe for you it's still going on. There is just this moment where you fall into the gap, and that which you are, this presence of being, consciousness, even you don't think about it, it's clear to you. I am here. I'm alive. I am aware. I know this. That shows you this. So if this mind is like that drumming, I encourage you, notice the gap when it does fall. No thought is connected to another thought without a small or large gap. And the more you notice the gap, the more you are able to remain in the gap of being and to let the doer on either side of the gap go and remain here in your presence as being, consciousness. Okay? Yes. How can I use this? This is our constant practice. Whatever's here, how can I use this? Not use this to become more successful or whatever. How can I use this to recognize the truth? To realize, who am I? Use everything. I'm going to try to read this. I don't have my glasses. This is a note that someone sent to me a few days ago on her way out of Tiruvannamalai. And I thought I would share it with you. She says, Dear Rishi, every question that I have had has been answered in the satsangs. Even the little things and details that I struggled with were mentioned and became awareness in being. Aware. It was amazing that questions would just come to me in the silence, and then it would be answered by you, or just a direct question from another person, or just within myself. Actually, it would all be answered by I, the oneness I, by being. And to know that in this being isn't even a question or answer, but just being, that doesn't hold on and identify with the thoughts. And this has been quite a journey. In this journey, there were two very special questions that did get answered, but not mentioned in the satsang, and I would like to share them with you. So I will share them with you. The first one was very funny. It was in a moment in satsang where I was very strongly identifying with my thoughts. And I looked at the picture of Bhagavan. And I heard my ego screaming, help! Right? This is that moment when the ego realizes, uh-oh, I'm in trouble here. Screaming help to him. And the question that came up after was, who are you talking to? Who are you talking to when you scream help? It's not me, meaning Bhagavan. It is definitely not the body me, the sage me, or the picture me. And this question stayed for a while and became, who am I talking to? And that's when I felt the shift, because am I talking to became who am I? And then it was I am. And then only I. This is inquiry. Yes? This is the active path of inquiry. From way out here to right here. And they continue. The second one was very weird to understand because it was a question to body you, meaning this body. And even after, I felt also to body me and body world. The question was, are you sick? My mind was completely shocked, but the answer was no, a deep and strong no. But I couldn't move or ask this question in the satsang because I identified it with you and thought I cannot ask that. I can't ask if he is sick. Why would I do that? This is definitely not the place to ask such a personal question. Maybe at the end it was the place. Maybe it was not at all at that moment. I don't know, but that's okay because it was a very special question that completely feels as a question to identify with, or it comes from identification. But I asked it without identification. So does that mean it isn't really identification? This is the mind, isn't it? Only after the no, the thoughts, and it's a too personal question, came to me. Then it became, am I sick? And then, am I? And then, who am I? And then again, only I. Only this being. And after this, the who am I became even more clear. And then only the question, who am I, was there. So I encourage you to please follow these very clear pointers. If you are confused about what is the way of inquiry, remember this. This is the demonstration of inquiry in practice, in reality, in real time. Moving from whatever it is that's attracting you outward, back toward the source. This is inquiry. Just that simple and just that direct. So we have a few more minutes. Does someone have a question that they wanted to get addressed today? Our time has been riding these waves.
Hello, I'm Miriam. Can you please tell me something about all is unreal and all is the self?
Did you hear that over here, everybody? Can you please tell me or speak about these two tenets in Advaita? All is unreal and all is the self. When it's said that all is unreal, it's not a denial of the direct experience or direct perception. It's very clear that something is happening. Experiencing is not unreal in the moment, in the here and now. So perhaps this question won't get answered today.
Saturday morning I will be here too.
Okay,
Thank you.
let's remember first thing Saturday morning.
Thank you.
Hari Om. That's it.